Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Eye on the Ball here. I am Steve Rivera, and you're listening to 1030 The Voice. Busy day today, good day today, a big game over the weekend, big couple games. Friday night was red-blue. We'll talk about that. And then Saturday night, late into the night, UA football pulled off a big win, relatively big win, against UCLA. Last second miss by UCLA. In studio today, I have Tom Danehy. How do you say your last name?
I say it Danehy. My wife says it differently, though. So and we've only been married 40 years. So,
Tom Danehy.
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 There you go.
Danehy. Okay, that's easy to remember. Danehy.
My father was born in Ireland, so I better get it right.
Someone I've known for a long time, read him for a long time, Tucson Weekly guy. Saw him over the weekend at the game, and I said, you want to come on the show? I think I was on your show a time or two way back in the day, before I became a gray-haired beard guy. But good to have you here. Welcome back to my this crazy world of journalism.
This is a much bigger studio than I remember. I used to be in this building with the late Emil Franzi.
Mm-hmm.
He and I didn't agree politically on things, but we
made for a good show, I'm sure.
Oh, we were great friends. We respected each other, and I mean, he liked opera and I liked Marvin Gaye, but this is sad, but right before he passed away, I found a video online of James Brown singing with Pavarotti. They're singing a song, James Brown song. It's A Man's World, and Pavarotti sings with James Brown. It was like the coolest thing ever, and so our two worlds met there, and we watched it while he was in his hospital bed. It was cool.
Yeah, you write about a variety of different things in your column, right? And
Yes.
I'm sure it's on a whim, whatever you decide to write that day. But you write a good percentage about sports, don't you?
I'd love to write more about sports, but I do write politics and just strange things that I've come across, and I write once a week for the weekly, but every now and then I'll just run into something that's just bizarre, so I'll have to write about it. I've written about. There's a guy at church. I mentioned my dad was born in Ireland, my mother was born in Italy, and my wife was born in Mexico. So I'm like an industrial strength Catholic, okay? But we used to go to a certain church, and I used to actually teach the religion classes there.
United Nations, yes.
And there was a guy that would sing at one of the masses, and he would sing like 9 verses of a song where one would have done, and it was just drive me crazy. And you're not supposed to come out of mass angrier than when you went in, right? And I actually ended up writing something about him, and I mentioned the mass and the church and everything, and people were just livid. And what was great is that the Monsignor at the church came up to me later, and he goes, "I agree with you 100%." He says, "Next time you watch when he's singing, watch me eyeballing him to get him to stop and everything."
Right.
But we ended up changing churches because of that guy. It was hideous. Anyway,
Got to keep the faith, Tom. Got to keep the faith.
Yeah, well, it's like Pascal. Do you know Pascal, the mathematician?
You're too smart for me, Tom. Go ahead.
Well, somebody asked him if he, why he believed in God, and he said, it couldn't hurt. Basically, that was his argument. He says, if I get to the end of my life and there is no God, at least I lived a good life according to those rules. And if there is a God, hey, I'm there.
It's a win-win. Can't lose. Can't lose.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. He's also famous for making Pascal's triangle for the expansion of polynomials. I'm sure you knew that.
I missed that day in school.
Okay.
I missed a lot of those days in school.
All right.
Although I do like numbers, just not in those terms.
Okay.
So you were at the game on Sunday. What did you come away with on Saturday? Sorry, Saturday.
One thing, the number one thing I came away with is it's freaking freezing in the press box. Will you tell somebody to turn the heat on?
Let me tell you something. It was more comfortable than normal because it wasn't as cold as it usually is.
Do they think that sports writers are going to get overly active if it's room temperature? I'm not kidding. And I tell people, oh yeah, I go to the U of A football games. I sit up in the press box. Oh, that must be great. No, it's not.
Not so much.
You can't talk to anybody.
Right.
You can't look around. You can't move. And they have seats that are made for anorexic models. And I'm supposed to sit up there with my big fat butt, and it's freezing in there. And not only that, this time of year, walking from the parking lot, we park on
Yes.
6th Street garage, whatever. So it's like 2-3 blocks, whatever. You work up a little bit of a sweat this time of year, and then you get up there, and it's unbelievable. Anyway, about the game, though.
Did you catch a cold? Is that where you're trying to go with it?
No, I don't. I don't like when people say I don't get sick, but I almost never get sick. And I've never had the flu, ever. And you'll like this story, then we'll get back to the football game really quick. My son went from the first day of kindergarten until he got out of college. And he has a degree in computer engineering. I mean, he's a smart guy. Never missed a day of school, not one.
Mm-hmm.
And I never missed a day of school from the time I started till the time I finished. And my daughter, who has a master's in engineering from Cornell, she missed 2 days in the 2nd grade because she got chicken pox and she was still contagious. And so my son and I call her the slacker. Okay, because she had those 2 days.
The Cornell grad, yeah.
Yeah, but she had a full scholarship to Princeton and a master's at Cornell. I take full credit for her, although I do have a wife. She's really smart.
She's not adopted. She wasn't adopted.
Well, she doesn't look like me, thank God. But anyway,
where were you going with this?
I was just going to say
that was a shameless plug for your outstanding kids.
Yeah, but no. Anyway, getting back to the game, I thought that U of A played okay. I mean, UCLA is not very good.
No. Well, okay is that kind of the description for this whole season to this point.
Yeah.
They're okay. Okay. I got a great girlfriend for you. She's okay. That's not too exciting, is it?
No, it's not. And the thing is, obviously, the next 2 games, they play at Colorado and then they play Washington at home. We're going to find out how okay they are.
Right.
And it's true. And now, and you look back and you just really lament that Hawaii loss.
Yeah.
If they were 4-0 with 8 games to go, they got to win 2 out of 8. They go to a bowl game. I'd say, okay, they're pretty good, but they got to win. They have to win 3 out of 8, and I don't know if they. I mean, and Oregon State almost beat Stanford the other night, and so that's not a gimme game.
None of them are anymore. This one, I think, I don't want to say you got lucky. They were fortunate to win that one. Don't you think?
And you see, I mean, UCLA, and then you look back, and I mean, Mike Leach is just going to be kicking himself for the rest of his life. Although I love Mike Leach, I adore Mike Leach. When they got rid of Coach Stoops, I was hoping that they'd get Mike Leach, but they had
a chance to.
Yeah, and they got Rich Rod instead. And I think Mike Leach would have fit in really well here, especially with the weather. He could have brought in, because he has a pass-happy offense.
Right.
And the weather here would have been better than it is in Washington State. What happened last year when Washington State had to play Washington that last game of the season, and it's like in a blizzard.
Right. Well, they beat the heck out of Arizona when it wasn't a blizzard, but it was cold.
Yeah.
But that would have been fun to cover. And he's one of those great quotes. You don't know what he's going to say.
Yeah.
Even though, did you see his stuff over the weekend?
He doesn't know what he's going to say. That's the best part.
That for a journalist, that's exactly what you
want.
I
know. Yeah, and you just got to have a good tape recorder.
How'd the cake taste? Well,
Yeah. Anyway, but. You wonder how UCLA put all those points up. Obviously, they had some kick returns and everything, but they scored 67 points against Washington State, at Washington State. And then to be held to 17, I guess that's okay.
That said, you must have been impressed with the defense, even to some degree.
Yeah, I was upset that they didn't have like a spy on the running quarterback for UCLA before he got hurt. Because he kept, it'd be 3rd and 8, and you say, oh, God, the defense is playing great, and all of a sudden he busts one for 15. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
And then you got to start over again. It's 1st and 10. Then they do 2 good defensive plays, and then he'd run one for 14 yards and get another first down.
This is a dumb question because I know I read you and you're sarcastic and you're funny on your columns, and you're a U of A grad, yes?
Yes.
And I ask people, because I'm not, so I really don't have a dog in the fight.
Why am I here? Why are we talking?
We're talking because I want to know about your kids.
You didn't go to ASU, right?
No, I didn't go to ASU.
Okay, then we're fine.
I'm from other parts.
Okay.
But so when you first started in the business, you started doing what you're doing, did you have a bias towards Arizona in a favorable way?
Well, it's weird. I went to Cochise College on a basketball scholarship many, many pounds ago, okay? And so I came from L.A. and I was in Douglas, playing at
How
Cochise.
would that work? L.A. to Douglas, was that like a witness protection program?
I had, oh God, I played 5 sports in high school and I was okay in all of them.
Many pounds ago?
Yeah, but I was, I played football and basketball and baseball and tennis and I ran track. and I was
Halfway
okay.
decent. Okay, you're okay like Arizona.
Yeah, but I wanted to play football in college, but in high school I weighed 135 pounds. But we had a super good team. I mean, we went. My high school football team went undefeated. It was really good.
Where'd you go? L.A.
It's called San Fernando High School.
Okay.
Charles White, the Heisman Trophy
Yes.
winner, he went to my high school.
Well, after you.
It was as much. As a matter of fact, I coached him a year, which was hilarious. I coached like the JV team, and he was my quarterback because he couldn't even make the varsity. As a sophomore, he couldn't make the
So
varsity.
you misidentified his position.
And no, I used him as a quarterback, and we ran the wishbone. But
Okay, that makes sense.
he just would never pitch it. He would just turn upfield.
You didn't want him to.
And you know what though? When he played varsity, do you know the wishbone? Do you know how it runs?
Yes.
He played fullback in the wishbone because he was the slowest guy in the backfield at my high school.
Who'd you have?
Well, there was a guy named Kevin Williams who he was a wide receiver for USC. He played the same time as Charles White, and a guy named Malcolm Moore who was a wide receiver for USC also. And then but it was a really good team. But Charles played fullback, which means he'd have to hit that one hole every time. And he averaged 12 yards a carry for the season. That's how good he was.
Didn't lose a game. I'm sure you didn't lose.
And when I had him at quarterback, we went unscored upon. But anyway, that's not. Anyway, I wanted to go play football someplace. And there are a lot of junior colleges in the LA area and everything. And but after a while, I wanted to get out of LA because LA.
You found the place.
LA is a sinkhole. I've had many job opportunities in LA, and I won't go there. I just won't.
Right mind. Well, so you went from LA to?
So I was going to go to northern Iowa to play football.
Okay.
And at the last minute, the story's too long. I just met somebody, and he was the basketball coach, and we were playing in a pickup game, and he offered me a scholarship.
To?
Cochise College.
How in the world do you go from LA to Cochise College in Douglas?
Well, you go I-10. And then you get off
You take
on
a left
US
at Albuquerque. Yeah, that's kind of like, let me pick a dart and throw the thing on the map.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, and it was great because but this is the bad part. I got a basketball scholarship.
The bad part is you ended up in Douglas.
Well, no, yeah, and Cochise College is remote, and I had all my teammates were African Americans. I was the only white guy on the team, and I was the point guard, and they were all from Detroit and Chicago, and they hated it there. They go, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're here." And I said, "Guys, this is heaven. All there is to do here is go to class and play ball. There's nothing else to do." I said, "What else could a college athlete want?" And they wanted to go into Sierra Vista to see if there are any nightclubs and that kind of stuff.
Across the
line, yeah, which was easy to do back in those days, but now it's like a federal thing, yeah.
Be safe.
But so I ended up at Cochise, and what's funny is that I wanted to play football, and so I got the basketball scholarship, and I said, "Oh, good, I can go play football. I'll just be a walk-on the football team." And I get to Cochise, and there's no football team, and it's just basketball. So I played basketball, and I played tennis, and I played baseball, and then while I was there, they called out to the college. I had written a paper for some class, and they called out to the college from the Douglas Daily Dispatch, the newspaper, and they said, "Do you have a journalism student who could be like a part-time sports writer?" And they said, "No, but there's this guy in the basketball team that can write a decent sentence. Why don't you try him?" So I went in there, and they hired me that day, on the spot. And that day, the sports editor quit. And so they made me sports editor with no experience whatsoever.
Timing, baby, timing.
And I would write, when you're young and stupid.
Yeah, yes, I do.
And
I
would write stuff like, "I'd like to see a high school football season go by without a cheerleader getting pregnant." Stuff like that. And what's funny is that the older people in town thought I was hilarious. They thought I was like a breath of fresh air. And some of the younger people were like, "Oh, this guy." Yeah. But so I did the Douglas Daily Dispatch for about a year and a half. And then when I got to the U of A, I was sports editor of the Wildcat. And I was the only one on the entire staff that wasn't a journalism major. Mm-hmm. And so to answer your question, people in Douglas were mostly U of A fans, but some were ASU fans. But I remember seeing The Catch. Remember The Catch? Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, he didn't catch that.
Jefferson, right?
Yeah, John Jefferson. I said, well, he didn't catch that. And I thought, I don't want to be rooting for that team. And so I became a U of A fan. And then I should tell you a story one day about Fred Snowden. He and I got into it.
Save that story because we're going to go to break here. We got to get. We're already 5 minutes over. So we'll come back here on 1030 The Voice. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera. In with me is the Tucson Weekly columnist, Tom Danehy.
Danehy.
Danehy. I'll get it by the time I see you tomorrow. You're going to tell me about Snowden.
Yeah. When I was playing basketball at Cochise, we came up to the U of A for a one-day tournament. We were going to play 2 games. And we played Pima College at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And then the U of A was going to practice in the afternoon. And then after practice, we were going to play a place, but back then it was called Navajo Junior College. And I guess now they call it Northland Pioneer. But
I've heard of it, yes.
And anyway, we played the game against Pima, and then we were sitting around and sitting in McKay. We asked one of the coaches, can we just sit here and watch the practice? And it was Jerry Holmes, the assistant coach.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. And so we went and got some food, and we came back to McHale, and we were sitting there watching the practice. We weren't saying anything. We were just sitting there watching it, and Fred Snowden came in, and for whatever reason, he was in a bad mood that day. And he said, who the heck are you guys? And I said, oh, that other coach said we could sit here and watch the practice. Well, you can't. Get out of here. And I said, really, dude? He said, I'm not a dude. And so it didn't go well. And then later, the Navajo Junior College team got snowed in. Not Snowden, but snowed in. And we had to play a City League team with Hoagie Simmons. Have you ever heard of Hoagie Simmons?
I've heard of him.
He's legendary. Back then, there were no three-pointers, and you couldn't dunk. And during the 1970s,
you talking about 74-ish, 75,
it was 74,
right?
75, and 76, yeah. And we played them, and they walked into the McHale, and I said, look at this, dude. We're playing Fred's Liquor Store or something, And Hoagie went for 69 points against us with no three-pointers. Mm-hmm. And if there had been threes, he would have had 100 points that day. And late in the game, 4 of my teammates had fouled out trying to guard him. And late in the game, I kind of stopped him at the top of the key, and he spun around and went to the baseline, and I used the angle, and I cut him off. And he went up in the air, and he did a 360 for no reason other than to show me that he could do a 360 and shot a jump shot. And he said, good D, man. And I said, oh, God, talk to me. He said I played good D. Anyway, so what am I looking at? Oh, somebody's pointing.
I'm looking up Tom.
Oh.
No, that's funny. That's funny.
Anyway, I went back to Douglas, and later when I was a sports editor, I just trashed Fred Snowden in a column. I mean, it was very juvenile.
Was he still coaching?
Oh yeah, and I was at coach. I was still at Cochise, but I was in the Douglas paper, and I just trashed him, and it was reckless and juvenile of me. I guarantee
That's what you do. Okay, and what happened?
No, I mean, it was way worse than anything I do. It was not called for. I admit it. So, 2 years go by, and I get up to the U of A, and I'm the sports editor of the campus paper, and I'm assigned, the editor wanted to cover the football team because they were going to play in Hawaii that year, so he told me, you cover the basketball team. And I went in, made an appointment with Coach Snowden, and I walked in, and I introduced myself. I'm the assistant sports editor of the Wildcat, and I'd like to meet you. And he reaches in his drawer and pulled out that column. And I said, oh, my God. Where am I? And he had those velvet walls, in his office. Did you ever see that? I mean,
no, that was way before me.
It was like a French pimp. I mean, it was a bad look. But he said, can you explain why you wrote this? And I told him the story, and he says, I don't remember that. He said, I really don't. He said, but you have a very vivid memory of it. So very big of him. He said, can we just start over? And I said, oh, that was great. And we shook hands, and he and I were tight.
That's funny that he had it in there, though.
Yeah.
I mean, from Adam, you may not have ever gone into that room again.
And I don't know how he did it. I mean, but he had read my stuff. He told me he had read my stuff, at the beginning of the school year.
Oh, okay.
And he remembered the name from that.
Yeah.
And he dug that column out, and we shook hands. And
so how did it go beyond that?
Oh, we were great. We were great together.
Yeah.
We'd sit there and talk basketball all the time.
Yeah.
And he had a guy named Gilbert Miles one time that was a point guard. And I remember we were someplace like in Colorado Springs or something, and Coach Snowden asked me, we were just sitting around after the game with Mr. Khalil. Mr. Khalil would bring food.
Yeah.
And he said, what do you think, Tom? And he says, you played point guard. He said, what do you think? I said, you can't have one guy playing one game and the other 4 playing a different game.
Right.
And I said, you just can't. I said, plus he's supposed to be the leader.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a very contentious relationship between him and Gilbert Miles, and it didn't end well. I mean, Miles, I think he left school in the middle of the season or shortly thereafter.
I don't remember, but he had some heck of a good player. You know, you've seen it all because if you were in that era, he had some pretty good teams.
He really did, yeah. I mean, Herman Harris and
Cornel Norman
and Bob Elliott and Eric Money and Gary. God, what's Gary's name? He's the Superior Court guy. Gary Harrison. Mm-hmm. And just the nicest guy ever.
So 75, how old were you in 75? I got about 20 seconds.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to do the math.
Well, you're good at math.
Well, I was 23.
23, and you were just out of school.
I turned 23.
You were just in school at the still at 23?
So I was 22, yeah.
Yeah, no, great impressionable time. So you had a good time.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. So, heck, so did I. We all had good times in college. If you did it right, you did it right. Let's take a break. We got to take our hard break at 6:30. We'll come back and reminisce some more with Tom Danehy. Did I got it right? Yes. Here on 1030 The Voice. Hey, welcome back to Eye on the Ball here on 1030 The Voice. I'm Steve Rivera, your host. In with me is Tucson Weekly columnist Tom Danehy. Tom, so you've been here a long, long time. So I'm going to kind of reminisce and go all over the map because that's what I do. So you've seen a number of games, basketball and football-wise, throughout the years. 40 years, I think you've been around. Give me your top three basketball players you've seen. Don't mention Sean Elliott because we always know that he's the best guy. Give me 2, 3, and 4.
I was going to say Ed Stokes. But that's an inside joke. 7 feet tall and couldn't dunk. Remember that team?
Yes.
With Ed Stokes and Sean Rooks, may he rest in peace.
And Brian Williams.
And Brian Williams, may he rest in peace. And I remember I just couldn't stand that team. And I wrote a line that Lute Olson actually really liked. I said a lot of good teams have chemistry. This team just has biology. I mean, they're just a bunch of tall guys, you know, and anyway.
That's very funny. Yeah. I didn't read that line.
And so
I wish I could use.
It was about the same. I remember one time it was around the same time as the UNLV team, the really great UNLV team.
It was right after.
And I wrote a thing, and it made Sports Illustrated. As a matter of fact, I wrote a thing. And I said that if the UNLV starting five all went to the $5 a carload drive-in, at least 3 of them would try to hide in the trunk because they're anyway. Gilbert Arenas was very good.
Yes.
But he was kind of crazy.
Kind of.
Yeah,
that's like saying U of A is okay. Yeah.
You know who I liked a lot? Jason Gardner.
Another person called in with that. I see that. He played second most minutes.
And I like I said, I played point guard in high school and college, and so I always try to get, when I coach, I try to get a good point guard. I mean, that's especially in girls basketball, that's 90%. It's like having a great pitcher in softball. Mm-hmm. If you have a point guard in girls basketball, you're money. Mm-hmm. But so I like Jason Gardner.
So is that 2-3?
Well, let me see. Not Gilbert Arenas. I don't even know about Gilbert Arenas. I mean, golly.
I'll give you a good guard.
Who?
Damon Stoudemire.
You know, it's really weird. I didn't like that. I didn't like the Khalid Reeves and Damon
You were the
Stoudemire.
only one.
Because they lost those games. Remember in the playoffs, they lost in the NCAAs. They lost to Middle Eastern, Western, Central.
Was not
Tennessee State.
Yeah, that's true. But they went to the Final Four with that.
They went to the Final Four and they played that really good Arkansas team. Mm-hmm. You know, Damon Stoudemire is really good. I have no beef with him except, you know, you're going to smuggle marijuana onto an airplane? Really? You make millions of dollars. Just buy some when you get there. Gee whiz, dude.
That's true.
Yeah, and let me see who else. I liked Andre Iguodala when he was here.
Yes.
I really did like him. Yeah.
2 years. What about
Channing Frye? I like Channing Frye is probably one of my favorites because he was just humble and he played hard. And
yes,
I remember one time I interviewed Channing Frye, and it was during Lent. And during Lent, I give up all kinds of stuff because I'm, like I said, an industrial strength Catholic. And he had a sandwich from that
Sausage Deli.
No, it's across the street from the baseball. Well, from the McHale. Where the Jeannie Davis thing is now, it's across the street, and and it's got like a marijuana leaf or something in the thing. And there's no marijuana or anything, but the sandwiches are just killer. And I can't remember and I ended up writing the entire column about his sandwich because
Chiba Hut or something.
Chiba Hut, that's it. Very good.
Okay.
And But Channing was really cool. And then
He was a great guy. He still is.
Yeah, and when I took my girls basketball team up to a Suns game one time, and he spent a half an hour talking to him.
He's a
everything.
fantastic guy.
Yeah, but not just that. He was a good player. He really was.
Yeah. It is amazing that he had such a career in the NBA for a long time.
Yeah. And well, you know what? Look at that though. I mean, he's in his 30s. He taught himself to shoot the three.
That's exactly it.
That's a great tool for a big guy like that. I liked the guy from wherever he was, Lithuania or whatever, the 3-point shooter a couple years ago. God, I can't remember his name.
3-point shooter. They haven't had Lithuania.
Well, I don't know if it's Lithuania. It's one of those places that used to be one country. Now they're 15 countries.
I have no idea.
You do. He was he played on that team that
Markkanen.
Yeah.
Markkanen's fantastic.
Yeah. I really liked him.
Who would you take? And I've asked my guests on this show, Ayton or Markkanen? Right now, who would you?
Markkanen.
Me too.
In a heartbeat.
It's not even a question for me.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah. I love the way he plays.
Yeah.
Away from the basket, near the basket.
And look what he's doing in the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
He's doing really well. I liked him. I wish. And unfortunately, that's one of those things when you're old like I am, you remember the teams where, I grew up in Los Angeles. And they had every UCLA and every USC game was on TV late at night. They'd show it like a tape delay. And so I got to watch Paul Westphal play and at USC.
Goodrich,
and then all of those great UCLA teams. When I was growing up, I'd stay up late and watch those games. And I don't know if you know, there was a USC team that had Paul Westphal and a guy named Ron Riley, and they went 24-2 their season.
And didn't make it.
They lost both games to UCLA. One of them, they had a 9-point lead, and they gave up the last 10 points of the game. And UCLA won the Pac-8 and won the national championship, won the NCAA championship. And USC, back then only one team from each conference could go.
Right.
But I got to see all those great UCLA teams, and they just I don't know. They were. I loved Kareem. I loved Bill Walton. Bill Walton's one of the best basketball players I've ever seen. But unfortunately, he opens his mouth. And he's nuts.
He didn't open his mouth back in the day because he stuttered.
I know. I remember we played against him in high school in a summer league game, and he just was very quiet and humble and just killed everybody. But I remember that when they wouldn't interview him much.
Yeah, he couldn't do it.
Somebody else they wouldn't interview. Vontae's perfect. Remember when he was at ASU? They told me that they wouldn't allow him to have an interview because he could not complete a sentence.
Really?
And I hope he's done forever. Did you see what happened?
I saw that hit. Yes.
And he got suspended for the rest of the season.
Right.
I hope that they don't go to the commissioner and get it shortened to 4 games or something.
Along those lines, because I say this publicly, I used to be a huge sports fan. Huge. When you're a kid, you follow all these stats and blah blah. Are you a sports fan?
Very much.
Are you?
Yes.
You haven't been jaded. You haven't been.
Well, I was a huge baseball fan, and I played baseball
because of what?
Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax.
Great time.
And my high school football coach was a teammate of Don Drysdale's at Van Nuys High School in Southern California. And you know who else was on that team with Don Drysdale? Robert Redford.
Really?
Yeah. And but Drysdale used to come to our practices and everything, and he was this big. I mean, he was a gigantic guy for a high school kid. I mean, he was probably 6'3", 6'4", and 230, 240, and just the nicest guy. But he would, like Walter Alston, the Dodger manager, would tell him to walk somebody intentionally, and he just hit him in the back. And they said, "Well, why'd you do that?" And he says, "Well, I saved 3 pitches," that kind of thing. But so I was a big Dodger fan growing up, and my poor father, may he rest in peace, one time he brought me an Angels cap. I said, "You're going to get me beat up at school, dude. I'm not going to wear this thing." But I was a big baseball fan for a long time, and then at the strike of 1994, I said, I'm done. And I'm not totally done. I can tell you who's going to the playoffs right now, but I don't follow baseball. I haven't followed it since 1994, really.
And don't worry, the Dodgers haven't done anything since 88.
Yeah.
So you're fine.
Well, I actually love that team, yeah. But with Kurt Gibson. But I follow basketball and baseball some.
So you're still a fan, but it hasn't jaded you in any way where the guys are jerks or you hate to go. You know what I'm saying? Some of the guys are jerks. You know that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give away any secrets here. And you just sometimes hate to go to the field or the whatever arena because they are jerks.
It's weird. I went through this. I've lived so long that I've gone through these phases. When I was a teenager, I idolized these guys. And then when I got out, not all of them. I mean, athlete, and you could probably have sex with just about any woman you want. Why are you picking on the ones that don't want you? I can't stand it. That drives me crazy.
So what about your opinion on Steve Garvey?
DS Church that plays sports is, there's something shady about him. There's just some nice guys who are monogamous and are good guys, but you could just, I don't know, I could just sense it. And then, it turns out that he was cheating on his wife and anyway, so.
Yeah, sorry to get you all rattled up, but that's great for good radio. I wish I had 2 hours today. We can go through everybody in the rosters.
Anyway, let's see. So who are your three basketball fans?
So my best basketball players? Okay, we'll do that, yeah. So Sean is obviously Sean. So I think it's Damon, number 2. Number 3, then I get lost here. I get lost here because it's hard, because a lot of the guys haven't lasted here 2-3 years. Beyond that, Bibby's, I think Bibby was fantastic, obviously, but he's only here for 2 years. I think the most underrated guy that he won't crack this lineup is Chris Mills. But, Khalid Reeves, very good basketball players. I'm talking just basketball players. But then you have Sean's guys who were here for a cup of coffee, and it's hard to put them in. Marketing, I think he was fantastic. Eaton had his thing. Aaron Gordon. Yeah. But they don't make Lute's roster because they didn't stay here long enough.
Right.
You said Gilbert. He was here for 2 years. Fantastic player. Richard Jefferson, top 7. That 3, 4, and 5, it's hard to put those people in there. Everyone will say kind of Steve Kerr. No, he wasn't that guy. He wasn't in the top 5. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't that player. He became Steve Kerr.
Right.
This was the beginning of Steve Kerr, but he became Steve Kerr later in life.
Well, so let me tell you a story real quick about Sean Elliott. I'm sure. I mean, he's my favorite. And I met Sean when he was 12 years old. I was working at a program called the National Youth Sports Program. And they would bus kids into the U of A and give them breakfast. And it was during the summer, and we had the run of the facilities. We could use the swimming pool, McHale, Bear Down, back when it was a gym, the baseball field. And we did sports for 4 hours. I mean, 3 hours, and then the last hour was swimming. And Sean was one of those guys. Curly Santa Cruz, whom they named the field after. He worked there. David Ginn, all these big names in coaching in Tucson. Tom Lundy, who coached baseball at Tucson High. Anyway, and Sean was 12 years old, and he wanted to be a soccer player.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he was, you could just tell there's something about him. But I taught him how to play chess. And he had played it a little bit at his elementary school, but I said, do this. And so he and I played chess all the way through high school and when he was at the U of A. Mm-hmm. And I can say this proudly, he never beat me, but one time there was a stalemate. You know what a stalemate?
Yes,
you don't have enough players, you don't have enough pieces on the board anymore to win.
Yeah.
And so it was a stalemate, and he like ran around his apartment and waving a flag. Yeah. And he came to my son's 2-year-old birthday party and held up the piñata for everybody. And I love Sean. I haven't seen him in a while. But
those were definitely the good old days.
Yeah.
The good old days. We got to take our last break here. You'll hold up my piñata here, and we'll smash it over time or something. Here we go. Steve Rivera. So it's hard to break down these players because there's so many good ones. What about football? Football, I'm not. Ricky Hunley, obviously number 1.
I like Chuck Cecil. Mr. Rogers getting in a slap fight, with those soft voices there and just reassuring and just, that'd be great, dude. Anyway, which was more disappointing? The fact that the U of A did not do anything after winning the Pac-12 South.
Yes. Or?
Last year's ASU game.
Oh, good question. That's a good debate. Well, talking to the ex-guys, they absolutely miserable after that game. ASU.
That may be the worst feeling I've ever had after watching a U of A game.
Because why? Because you're an alum? Because why? You have no feelings. You're a sports writer.
No, I love the U of A. I'm a big U of A fan. I have never tried to be impartial. I've never claimed to be impartial. If I wrote for like the Star or something, I guess I would have to be a little bit impartial. But I've never said that. I don't even pretend it. I like the U of A. I want the U of A to win. And it was just heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I told myself when there was like 12 minutes left, I said, don't sit on the ball.
And that's exactly
Don't sit on the ball. And then I was talking, my son was sitting there watching it with me, and he said, do you think they should go for, he always wants to go for 2 all the time. He's one of those guys, let's go for 2. And I said, you know what? you don't need to go for 2 in this situation. Just go ahead and kick
Right.
the 1. And if they'd have kicked those 2 extra points, they would have won that game by 1 point.
Well, circumstances would have been different. Yeah, but I get it.
And it just and then those 2 things that happened at the end with the bad handoff and the other thing and the other. Oh, I mean, it was crushing to me. And so it drove me crazy to watch that game. And then and they could have gone to a bowl game, and they the whole season would have been okay. And they had pounded Oregon, and it would have just boded so well, so much for the future and everything. And it's like I'll remember that the rest of my life.
You've been here obviously longer than me. I've been here 32 years. You've been here 40 something. Why do you think that this place cannot win in the football arena? What's the deal here?
I don't know. I think you have to have. I mean, obviously they've had good teams that have
Sporadically.
that have gone up there, but it's like at any level. And again, I coach high school girls basketball, and I tell my kids when I got to Immaculate Heart, I told the kids they had won 4 games in 5 years total at the school, and I said we're going to win. I said we're going to work real hard. We're going to win. My first year we won 18 games. And I told those girls who were coming back the next year, I said, the hardest thing in the world is to keep on winning.
Yes.
I said, getting there is hard.
I say that all the
Staying
time.
there is much harder.
I say that all the time.
And the next year we won 25 games. We won the conference championship. And then the year after that we won 24. And then last year we won 19. But we're still going to state every year, that kind of thing. But I think with the U of A, you have to, it has to be perfect almost. And then to repeat perfection every year is tough. And it's like with high school kids, you're going to have, it's going to be like a swell. You know what a swell is? Like a wave out in the distance. You're going to have these like high school classes. That sophomore class is really something. But then behind it is this like lower level freshman class that isn't very good. And at a place like USC, you can probably get away with it because you got so many good athletes. And, Stanford is always going to get good athletes, although they kind of stink this year.
You're right.
But
that's their swell. I mean, it doesn't happen very often.
And obviously, the teams in the SEC.
You tell me a long story for a short question. So why do you think they can't do it here?
Because you have to have everything come together, like in the 1999 team, or 98, 99, with Keith Smith and Trung Candidate and everything. And everything came together, and they still didn't win the conference championship. Yeah. They still didn't go to the Rose Bowl. But, I mean, what they go, 12-1?
Yeah.
They were 4th in the country? Mm-hmm. And you would think, oh, okay, now the pump is primed. We're there. We're ready. Right. And then they went down.
A year later or 2 years later, Dick is fired.
Yeah. And it's just like that. I don't think Arizona is ever going to be. You can do it in basketball because you only need 2 or 3 good guys in basketball, but you need 30 or 40 in football. That it's 2 strings on offense and defense, and I don't think Arizona is ever going to be able to do that.
Does Arizona suffer from being Arizona, and not USC, UCLA, or Washington? You know what I'm saying? It suffers because I've said this on the shows that we do in the Pac-12. It's about 7th or 8th best school in the conference.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. I'm as good looking as I'm going to get. I'm never going to get any better looking. Does that make sense? Where I'm just or bad looking.
Well, science might help you.
No, cosmetic surgery could help me. But you know what I'm saying. It's right there in the middle, and that's what they should be, excluding a year or two when they get up and down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's sad because I always thought. I didn't think they should have gone into the Pac-10 at first. I thought they were going to get killed, and then they ended up doing pretty well. And Larry Smith had that nice run, and Dick Tomey had the good run, but again, I don't know. Do you know? I actually called your show when Dick McConnell passed away, the Saguaro coach.
Yes, I remember.
And he told me when I started coaching girls basketball. He said, Tom, if you win too much or you lose too much, they're going to mess with you.
Yes. If
you can stay in the middle, around 500 and have a good season every 3 or 4 years, you got a job for life. And I think that's what a U of A coach is going to be. You got to, if you can go 7-5 and 6-6 and go to a bowl game, and all of a sudden one year go 10-2,
right?
And then go back down like that. I think that's what the success curve for a U of A coach looks like.
And Lute used to say, if you win, you need to get out by 7-8 years. You got to get out. Because then people are expected all the time and blah, blah, blah. And obviously, he stayed longer. But, you've been a number of places as a coach.
Yeah.
It's tough to stay long.
Well, it is for me because I don't get along with adults. I really don't. Kids, I mean, I get along great with kids because I think they recognize me as one of their own. But adults hate the way I dress. They don't like what I do for a living. They don't like my politics. And
you're a tough cookie.
So
well, thanks for joining me. You got to come back more often, so we have to spend more time. I don't want to get you out of your norm, but you're going to come back and have fun.
It's been fun. I really enjoyed it.
We'll talk about the good old days and continue our little waxing poetic on whatever. Because we didn't talk really much. We'll see about the future of the football team and see about the basketball team. So you'll have to come back maybe in a month. Is that
all
cool?
right? Sounds good.
When the basketball season starts.
Yeah. But they got to have Marvin Gaye music when I come back.
We'll pick your music.
Okay.
Tom Danehy with the
or Danehy.
Danehy. Here.